video is for Benjamin Netanyahu and Benjamin Netanyahu only. If you are not Benjamin Netanyahu, keep scrolling. Now that we have a ceasefire in Gaza, I just want to take a moment to define what ceasefire means for you, since apparently we've had some confusion on this in the past. A ceasefire is a temporary suspension of active fighting between opposing sides in a conflict, often to allow for peace talks, humanitarian aid, or to retrieve wounded soldiers. And since this seems to be the point where you're confused, the term ceasefire comes from the military order to literally cease fire. A ceasefire is a literal stop shooting order, not a Hamas stop shooting and Israel keep going. No. It means stop shooting for both sides.
Smoke was seen rising from Gaza after an Israeli attack mere hours after both sides agreed to a ceasefire. It was announced yesterday by Donald Trump that he had brokered a deal between Israel and Hamas that they agreed to the first phase of a ceasefire in which hostages would be released into Israel and that the bombing of Gaza would stop. What we're seeing is the duplicitous nature of Israel and what many feared would occur, that they would do anything possible to break the ceasefire and say Gaza did something or Palestinians did something to have to protect Israel. So they are bombing these people who have nothing left to bomb.
So Israel just bombed Gaza again, literally hours after agreeing to a ceasefire. Yesterday, Hamas and Israel announced a deal, a ceasefire and a hostage exchange, the first step towards peace. But before the ink even dried, Israel sent airstrikes hitting Gaza City and Khan Yunis. 10 Palestinians killed and dozens more injured, all while headlines were still celebrating a peace breakthrough. And this isn't even new. Every single truce deal ends the same way. Another exception, another security operation, another loophole that somehow justifies bombing civilians during a ceasefire. Families were literally unpacking aid boxes when the next airstrike hit. Imagine thinking that it's finally over just for the sky to start shaking again.
We all woke up thinking finally Gaza could breathe because Israel and Hamas signed the first phase of the ceasefire agreement. A deal that's supposed to stop the bombs, bring the hostages home, and mark the beginning of peace. But I found out strikes are still happening, even after the agreement was signed. Does anyone know why Israel is still attacking Gaza? Was that agreement really a ceasefire, or was it just a pause before the next round of destruction? Because for the people in Gaza, ceasefire doesn't mean safety. It means waiting. It means hoping that the sky stays quiet long enough for them to find food and water, check to see if their families are alive. And the only reason why Trump is pushing so hard for this ceasefire is because the Nobel Peace Prize winner will be announced tomorrow. He's dying for it to be him, for this deal to be his biggest legacy moment. But how can he be chasing peace prizes when bombs are still falling? I want to believe this ceasefire means peace, but I don't trust it. Part of me is terrified that this is just another promise written in smoke.
As expected, Israel is not abiding by the ceasefire and is bombing multiple places all over Gaza. And now the Israeli government is changing the goalpost and the terms of the ceasefire deal, saying that the ceasefire will only come into effect from the Israeli side after the Israeli government has had a chance to sit together and formally approve the implementation of the ceasefire, which, according to them, the Israeli government will convene at 6 p.m. Palestine time. And until then, the Israelis have said that there is no ceasefire and they'll continue to bomb Gaza as they please. And not a word about this development from any Western mainstream news organization. But if Hamas retaliates against Israel, bombing them and breaking the ceasefire deal, then you best believe all of Western media will suddenly start reporting on how it is Hamas that broke the conditions of the ceasefire deal. And bombing aside, Netanyahu's already trying to break the other aspects of the deal by refusing to hand over high-profile Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli dungeons. And where are the United States and Turkey, who are supposed to be the guarantors of this ceasefire deal?
Hello guys, and welcome to the Joy Report, where we get an outsider's view with an insider's clarity. The world had barely finished celebrating the news of a ceasefire between Israel and Gaza before the explosion started again. Reports confirmed that just hours after the truce was announced, Israel forces resumed strikes on Gaza City and Han Yunis. Multiple civilians were reported unalived, dozens injured, and the so-called peace evaporated before it even truly began. Before we proceed, all credit goes to the creators of these videos. Let's watch a few more clips, and I'll be back with more commentary.
At this time in history, why does this regime continue to lie to our faces and waste our time and pretend like anybody believes a word that comes out of Benjamin Netanyahu's flying ass mouth every single time he has agreed to a ceasefire? What happens? And he did it again. Oh yeah, I agree to a ceasefire. Have you seen what he just did to Gaza again? We as a nation are complicit. We know what we're doing. When I say we, I mean this government. They know what they're doing. They are absolutely in on it.
I felt relieved for a few hours. My friend Denise felt relieved for a few hours. He thought he was going to get a good night's sleep last night. Cousins were jumping for joy. Still uncertain, but you know, at least the bombs weren't going off. Well, now they're doing it again. What did they get? Like 5 hours of peace? At this point, the UN needs to stop asking permission to help Gaza and just do it. Ask for forgiveness later. Billions of dollars sitting there in wasted navy and military. It's just sitting there doing nothing. Useless. Because America keeps going, Vito, no, you can't help. Just do it. What's he going to do? The whole world against him? Come on.
This has become a familiar cycle. A ceasefire is declared, headlines frame it as a step towards stability, leaders congratulate themselves, and then the bombs fall again. For the people living through it, the term ceasefire has become less of a promise and more of a pause in between tragedy. Yet despite this pattern, political figures thousands of miles away continue trying to claim credit for outcomes that haven't materialized. One name in particular keeps resurfacing: DT. In typical fashion, DT positioned himself as a dealmaker behind the scenes, hinting that peace talks in the region existed because of his prior influence. His supporters become echoing the narrative, applauding him as though the ceasefire itself were proof of his diplomatic success. But now, with Israel resuming its strikes, that illusion is gone, and once again, a promise of peace has been reduced to headlines and soundbites. This isn't the first time DT has declared victory before the dust settled. He has a long-standing habit of framing complex global disputes as personal achievements, taking credit for outcomes that haven't been secured and declaring wins that haven't been earned. His statements are often bold, confident, and absolute. But just as often, reality catches up. The issue here isn't about choosing sides in a conflict. It's about accountability in leadership. When lives are at stake, promises must be more than slogans. Declaring peace while bombs are still flying is not just irresponsible, it's dismissive of the people on the ground who are living with the consequences. Ceasefire does not mean peace. It is merely an agreement to pause fire, not a resolution, not a solution, not an end. And when that pause lasts only a few hours, calling it peace is not just misleading, it's disrespectful. The tragedy is not only in the renewed violence, but in how quickly it was politicized. Instead of reflecting on the fragility of the situation, some leaders rushed to assign credit for something that didn't even last a day. That kind of posturing may work on campaign stages, but it doesn't hold up against the sound of explosions. DT's political strength has always been in his ability to sell an image of certainty, to tell his audience confidently that a problem is solved long before it actually is. But this moment exposes that tactic for what it is: performance without follow-through. Despite the ongoing violence, much of the international response remains muted. Statements of concern are issued, calls for restraint are made, and then the world quietly moves on, at least until the next headline. This cycle allows leaders to maintain distance from the consequences while still appearing involved. They speak of diplomacy, but rarely acknowledge how fragile and superficial these agreements often are. When ceasefires are used as political talking points rather than real commitments, the people suffering become background noise. In some someone else's public relations campaign. That is why words like peace must be treated with care. When spoken too casually, they risk losing their value entirely. If peace can be declared while drones are still in the air, then what does that word even mean? Promises without protection, agreements without accountability. These are not solutions. They are illusions. And illusions do not rebuild homes. They do not heal wounds. They do not comfort the families who wake up each day wondering if today will be their last moment of safety. The ceasefire breaking so quickly serves as yet another reminder that branding something as a success does not make it real. There is a difference between negotiating peace and announcing peace. One takes work, the other takes Wi-Fi. One happens at the table, the other happens on social media. And right now, it is painfully clear which version dominates the US politics. Whether one supports DT or not, the pattern is undeniable. Time and again, he has stepped forward to declare progress where there was none. And time and again, harsh reality has dismantled those proclamations. The Israel-Gaza ceasefire collapse is just the latest example. People don't need speeches about peace. They need proof of it. They don't need declarations. They need results. Until the violence truly stops, not for an hour, not for a news cycle, but for good, no leader should be claiming victory. The world is watching, and more importantly, people are living or being unalive through the consequences of empty promises. Leadership requires patience, humility, and honesty. Not every moment is a photo op. Not every headline is a trophy. The team may continue to speak as though peace is already achieved, but Israel's actions have spoken louder. The ceasefire is over, and so is the illusion. So what do you all think? Do you think politicians should be allowed to take credit for peace when the violence hasn't stopped? And is it time we judge leaders based on results, not announcements? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. I would love to keep this discussion going. Otherwise, that's it from me. I also have another video specifically tailored for you. And if you enjoy such kind of content, please click up here and enjoy. Also, consider subscribing, liking and sharing because it helps me grow my channel and helps YouTube recommend this video to a wider audience. But for now, thank you so much for watching. And until the next time, the Joy Report out.